How about now? Oh, that is frustrating. Now you just want to start over on everything. So I apologize for that. I had the wrong input. I have been messing with my uh, with my settings, and I was building a new profile in Ecamm. So hopefully, let me know in the comments if you can hear the audio now. I'm getting okay. Thank you, Frank. Okay, well, we'll start over. That sucks, but it is what it is. It's always something. Now, I was in Ecamm messing with my profiles, and I built out a whole new profile thing. So, anyhow, we'll start over. Welcome into Cap and Trade. I am your host, Texans Cap. You can find me on X at TexansCap. You can find me on Substack. The newsletter is www.capandtrade.football. It's a free newsletter. I put out a ton of content, usually at least once a week. It's going to be pretty heavy during the season, as always. Off season, it's more NFL related. Once the season starts, take off the NFL hat, and it's more Houston Texans related. So, hey, but it's a free newsletter, so subscribe to that. There's a ton of content. It's all free. There's a paid subscription model if you want to help me make it just better than it is. So that's there for you. But like I was saying, training camp starts up. Oh, gosh, I'm excited. It starts, Thursday? So I started getting the Texans media availability emails today of when coaches are available, when practice starts, all those things. So that's like, okay, it's here. It's time. Training camp is here. So I'm super excited. I'm going to attend as many practices as I possibly can, as what my work schedule will allow. I'll turn up the volume a little bit more. 11. Sorry about that, bud. Let me know. How's that? Does that sound a little bit better? Hopefully that volume's a little bit better for everybody. These live streams, man, they're just funky. Just let me know in the comments if the volume is a little bit better for you. I turned it up a little bit. So, all right, let me get back into this. So, training camp's coming up. So, kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight was just what I'm going to be looking for. Like I said, I'm going to be at as many practices as I can go to. I won't be able to make every single practice. I have a day job, so I try to make as many practices as I can. Please input a Q. So if you have any questions or comments, if you have a question, please put a Q in front. And that way I can filter it. I can search at the top of the comment section. I'm going to get to as many questions as I possibly can tonight. But tonight I just kind of wanted, Texas training camp's coming up, so I kind of wanted to just kind of go what I'm going to be looking for at training camp. What's got me intrigued, what players I'm intrigued to see. There's a ton of new names, ton of players. I mean, I kind of want to more focus on like under the radar, some names that are not C.J. Stroud, not Nico Collins, not Stephon Diggs, like the top tier names that are going to be talked about national media constantly. I want to go to the next level. I want to look at those guys. So, okay, good. So volume's better. Perfect. All right. So audio issues are fixed. I apologize for that. So let's get over here to talking points. So, tonight, I just want to go, like I said, I want to talk about some position battles that have some intrigue for me, which players I'm going to be watching heavily during training camp, any surprise roster cuts that may come down the line. So these are just high-level topics we'll kind of get into a little bit further, but, some of the most interesting position battles, right? So to me, right off the top, I think left guard. is going to be probably the most interesting one for me to watch. And it's tough to watch offensive line during training camp because if they don't have the pads on, there's really not a whole lot to watch. You can go watch one-on-ones. A lot of times the team will stuff the offensive line one-on-one drills on the opposite side of they'll put the one-on-ones like way on the corner opposite end of the field from the media, and we just can't get a good view of those. But left guard has a ton of intrigue for me. We know Kenyon Green is coming back from injury. He was shelved for his second year. Kendrick Green came over and was picked up last year from Pittsburgh, and he showed promise, in my opinion. For the 2 or 3 games, it was a relatively short sample size, but for the 2 or 3 games that we saw from him at left guard, he showed a lot of promise. He's got a lot of athletic ability, which is what the team needs in this zone running scheme. And, his pass protection is enough, but, that part we'll just have to see. But that, to me, because this offensive line is going to be so critical. We saw so many injuries last year between Titus Howard, saw the shuffling at left guard with, 3 or 4 left guards, Jarrett Patterson, Juice Scruggs coming in at center. I think Shaq Mason was the only constant throughout the whole season. Tunsil missed a few games. But just assuming Howard's back to healthy, and that's a big if based on, if you've been following my posts on X, that's a big if. We've heard Cody Stutes kind of question whether or not he's going to make it back for the regular season. John Alexander from the Houston Chronicle kind of dropped a little nugget like, hey, if he's going to be ready to start. And that kind of caught my eye. So this offensive line has a ton of ceiling. Could be a top 10 offensive line if they can stay healthy. Tunsil, we know, even if he's going to play 15, 16, 14, 15 games, if he can play the whole season, he's going to be a top 5 left tackle. No concerns there. Shaq Mason at right guard, top 10 right guard. Quietly underrated. And if you go talk to Brandon Thorne from Trench Warfare, any of the offensive line guys who really dive into that stuff say Shaq Mason had a fantastic season in 2023. So, and he played every game last season. You got to assume that Drew Scruggs is going to be back at center, right? He's going to be your starting center. So there's that left guard battle between Kenyon Green, and Jarrett Patterson. And who's going to win it? We don't know. We have to wait and see how it plays out in camp. Nobody's position is given for that specific spot. So to me, that is one of the most important positions that we need to see develop out and figure out who is going to be that LG1. If whoever it may be, if it's one of the 2 Greens or if it's Jarrett Patterson, I think all 3 players have the ability to be a quality guard, not a top tier. I'm not shooting for the moon here. I need a quality guard because you have a very good upper tier right guard. Juice Scruggs has the potential to be a very solid center. Titus Howard, if he can remain healthy. And I know that's the problem with this offensive line. It's a lot of ifs. If so-and-so, if so-and-so, if so-and-so. There's a ton of potential. The variance is very wide with this offensive line. Chris Staffnauer, sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly, did a great job with what was available to him to work with in 2023. So we see what CJ Stroud can do with a decent to middle bottom offensive line. If that can bump up to a top 12, top third offensive line, it's gonna work out great for him. And hopefully we can see a run blocking as well. I think Kendrick Green and Kenyon Green both are fantastic in run blocking. And with Joe Mixon coming to town, that position just has a lot of intrigue with me at left guard. The second position that has a lot of intrigue for me is cornerback 2. By all accounts, it sounds like Kamari Lassiter has that CB2 boundary corner on lockdown. Doesn't sound like, as of now, anything can change, right? Training camp's a long process for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then preseason. But if you follow the folks that cover this team, Kamari Lassiter seems like CB2 is his to have and to take and to hold on and not give up. Sounds like Jeff Okudah, CJ Henderson are behind him. And we heard D'Amico talking about Lassiter could potentially slide over to nickel. He could kind of play wherever. That seems like more out of necessity than anything. So to me, it's more he's a boundary guy. So look at there, Mr. Landry. How are you, sir? Thanks for dropping by. If you're not following the locker room, you're missing out, man. Make sure you follow that dude. Landry Locker's putting in the work. It's going to be a crazy season with him on YouTube. But I think Kamari Lassiter, I'm intrigued to see him, but I think just the battle at CB2 is going to have a lot of potential, a lot of consequence, because slot the nickel back is, and we see this defense plays a high percentage in 5 defensive backs. So you're gonna have Desmond King and Miles Bryant, who was signed over from New England Patriots, battling out for the slot nickel back. And be as it may, what you say about Desmond King off the field or practice or anything like that, the dude shows up on game day. The dude shows up on game day and wants to play. So I think those two, Miles Bryant and Desmond King, are going to battle it out for the nickelback. Desmond King might have a little bit of a head start on him because of A, he's been in this system for a year, and 2, he can do punt return. But Kamari Lassiter, CB2, that's probably my second position that I want to watch. I think it's going to be interesting because it doesn't seem like Jeff Okudah or CJ Henderson are flashing at all, showing any of that first-round potential that they had from 4 or 5 years ago. It's probably carrying over what we've seen the last 2 or 3 years from those two players. So Kamari Lassiter, CB2, is another position. So position group 3 is going to be wide receiver. And what I mean by that is wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. It's a lock that it's Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and probably Noah Brown are your 4 wide receivers that have lockdown. From there, it's a little bit tricky. From there, you've got John Mechie, who, by all accounts and by all reports, is coming back full-on head of steam. And I've been a John Mechie truther since he was drafted. I was excited to have him. So I'm hoping full offseason for him is going to be the one. So you got John Mechie, you got Ben Skoranek that they pulled over from the Los Angeles Rams, who has got a ton of experience in this system. Very good run blocker. Can kind of play pseudo tight end, can kind of play pseudo H-back, big wide receiver. And then you got Xavier Hutcherson, third-year guy, speedster, not really an underneath kind of player, more of a vertical threat. And then the veteran Robert Woods. So you've got Mechie, Skoranek, Woods, Hutcherson, 4 players potentially playing for 1 to 2 spots at the wide receiver spot. So to me, that has a ton of intrigue to me. I know a lot of people thought that Robert Woods should have been released already, and I think that's folly. I think that's just a horrible idea. I think, Robert Woods provides you a lot of depth, a lot of veteran stability. Same for John Mechie. You don't release a guy like that in the middle of June. It makes no sense. None. People are, you get $2 or $3 million. Who cares about the cap savings in June? The team has spent its money. The cap is set. Okay? At this point, all that matters is you have a full complement of wide receivers. So if Noah Brown, John Mechie, somebody goes down in camp preseason, then Robert Woods is right there ready to go. Okay? Injuries happen. They're going to happen. So it's going to be interesting to see how that group plays out on the back end of the wide receiver group. My last position of intrigue is kind of an interesting one. And I hinted at this on X this week when I talked about Dameon Pierce and the potential value that he has as a kick returner, and that's the position group of kick returner. With the new kickoff rules, kickoff return is going to have much more value this year. We're going to see a ton of more returns. We're not going to have 1 to 2 returns a game like we see today. And those are a lot of times just brought out because if they have the other team has a good kicker who can balloon it. But with the new kickoff rules, a lot of returns are going to happen. Now, I encourage you to go over to sumersports.com, SUMER sports.com. My buddy Sean Saeed did a full-on write-up, huge in-depth article on the kickoff. Formations, formation types, what the blocking schemes are going to look like, what the coverage schemes are going to look like. It's phenomenal. So, and he's extremely smart, very, very, very intelligent dude. So go read that. And I learned a ton when I read it this week. But I think because it's essentially a running play, and it's not, I mean, you can do power pulls, you can do one-on-one blocking, you can do drop shuffle. You know, there's a ton of different schemes. Go to Sean's article and read it. But I think Dameon Pierce, and from what I've been told, because I didn't make it out to OTAs, that Pierce didn't see a whole lot of kickoff return duty, and that's OTAs. That's fine. If Pierce is going to make this roster, and I've said this time and time again, if you're not a starting running back, you have to have special teams ability to make this roster. That's why Dario Gabale makes this roster. Excusing the kicking part, but he's very good on coverage as well, on kickoff coverage and punt coverage. But Dameon Pierce, if he's going to make this roster, it's going to have to be through special teams. And kickoff return is his avenue. And I think just the nature, because it's not, we saw him have difficulty with the zone concepts, shuffling the feet. If you saw my post last year, we saw a lot of Pierce going out on a zone run, outside zone run, and then he'll shuffle his feet before cutting up, right? I know it's a tough comparison if you go back and look at Arian Foster, but he just was the master of 1 foot, plant, go, right? And that's what you have to do in zone, because that hole, that gap, is only there for a millisecond. And you've got to make that decision and go. And Pierce would shuffle his feet before he was going up, cutting upfield. And by the time he was getting that cut up, the lane was gone. So you hope, by all means, you hope that he has tried to learn a little bit this offseason, and that, hopefully he's a little more adept to the zone scheme. But I think the way the kickoff return is set, you can take a more direct line. It's not so more as waiting for a lane to develop. So I think that's important. So he's going to have competition with Steven Sims, Mechie, Desmond King. So I think that's an area to watch, because I think kickoff return is going to have a ton of value this year. So that's what I would look at. That's my 4 position battle of intrigue. If we want to go back and look at which players I'm watching. And Arthur, I did see your question. I'll hop onto that in just a second. So, which players am I watching? So let's jump over to that. So, players that I'm watching, right off the top, is going to be Danico Autry. Like I said at the top of the show, or that may have been a part that it was that I didn't have audio. Right off the top, Danico Autry. I've been intrigued by this signing ever since he came over. And how is he going to fit into this defensive line? How is D'Amico Ryans going to use him? Because he's like a tweener, right? He's like 290, 295. So he's not the big 320-pound one technique defensive tackle. He's not a 270-pound defensive end, 260-pound defensive end. So it's kind of in that tweener range. So does he line up, outside shoulder 3 technique? Does he line up on the edge? Does he line up interior? And so I'm just interested. We probably won't be able to see a whole lot of it during training camp, but more so maybe in preseason. But I just want to see how he's deployed and how he's used. And is he going to be more vertical pass rusher from the interior? Because we know D'Amico uses a lot of stunts to get his defensive ends to have free looks. The interior guys will crash down on the guards and try to push them directly into the tackles to create an open lane between the center and the guard for the defensive ends to loop around. We saw that a ton from D'Amico Ryans in last year. But to me, that's more of a Tim Settle, Fatakusi, Mario Edwards kind of type job. So I'm just really curious to see how Domenico Autry is deployed and used, because he's very productive, very efficient pass rusher, solid in run defense. So is he going to see 40 or 50% snaps? Is he going to see 60 or 70% snaps? Is he going to be on the field at the same time that Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are on the field, or is he more of an outside edge with Derek Barnett? We'll just have to wait and see. And so to me, that's like somebody I'm just itching to see. I just want to see how D'Amico uses him. It's almost like a defensive line joker, right? See where he goes. Second player I want to watch, and I mentioned him earlier, John Mechie. I've been a John Mechie truther since day one. I think I have a post out there on X, back when it was Twitter, that Mechie was going to be Davis Mills' security blanket. And then, unfortunately, he had the things off field that he had to deal with the cancer, and he doesn't want to label that and lean on that thing. So I'm excited to see John Mechie. I'm excited to see a full off season for John Mechie. His strength is back, his speed is back, his cut, his agility, because he's not so much a vertical threat, but his 3-cone drill was very fantastic at the combine. He can work underneath, he can work out of the slot, he can be a boundary guy. I'm not trying to take that away from him, but he can kind of do a little bit of everything. But he is your underneath, dirty work kind of guy. His run blocking needs to get there. He does miss some of the second level blocks from what I watched last year. So kind of keep an eye on that. But Mechie, really excited to see him. I've just been excited to see him for a few years now. So that's my next guy. And then beyond that, so the third player that I'm really interested to watch is Blake Fisher, who they drafted this year, offensive tackle. Kind of threw everybody for a loop of why you would draft a tackle that early. Then you start to listen to Cody Stutes and John Alexander and Landry, and starts to make a little sense, right? Charlie Heck was your offensive tackle 3 heading into the draft, and that's not the most comfortable setting that you want to be going into the season, especially with Titus Howard not 100%. So is Titus Howard going to be ready to go start of the season? We don't know. But Fisher, a little raw, not ready to start, but fits the zone scheme tackle agility. He's very good in the zone scheme. His pass blocking, we'll just have to wait and see. But he's very athletic, quick on his feet, very good lateral movement for that zone scheme work. So I'm just I just want to see. And like we said, with offensive line, it's very difficult because half the time training camp, they don't have the pads on, and you can only just see a little bit of work there. But, we'll try to see the one-on-ones as best we can. But that's just another player kind of under the radar that has my interest level. We talked about the cornerback 2 group, and this would be a good time to look at Arthur's question. So he'd asked about Stephon Gilmore would be an interesting signing. Let Lester come on slow. That is an interesting thought. I'm not entirely sure why the team elected to go with Okudah and Henderson over somebody like Stephon Gilmore. Maybe it was a money thing. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Gilmore will probably be waiting to see if a injury happens in camp somewhere. But, I mean, he's a very, very good zone scheme cornerback. Not so much a man press. And that's kind of been the thought process this offseason is, Okudah, Henderson are more man press, more man coverage type defensive backs. And we know Derek Stingley can do both, but we know Derek Stingley excels in man coverage. So that's why I think Stephon Gilmore probably is the reason why he's not here. Doesn't mean he won't be here midway through through training camp or things like that. We'll just have to wait and see. But just the cornerback 2 group, like we talked about at the beginning, it has a lot of intrigue. I want to watch Lassiter. I want to watch Okudah. I want to watch Henderson. I want to watch King, and I want to watch Miles Bryant. I'm very interested to see how that group plays. It sounds like Jeff Okudah had a bit of a rough OTAs. There was a few videos I saw on Cody Stutz's work that there was a few shots and a few snaps where Okudah was getting beat, but it's OTAs. He's a veteran. Let's see if he can flip the switch and turn it on for training camp. And then 2 dark horse players. Players I want to watch. 2 dark horse players that I really have my eye on is at the defensive tackle position, Marcus Harris, who was drafted this year in the day 3, 6th or 7th round, if I can't remember, one of those 2. I think this defensive tackle group is pretty limited on their depth. Let's take a look at that real quick. So this group here and they've got, this is our lads. So they've got Fatakusi and Atria as defensive tackle 1 and 2. Mari Edwards, Tim Settle behind there. But I'm interested in Marcus Harris. Settle's a big dude. He's like 330. Fatakusi, 310, big dude. Edwards and Autry are smaller guys. They're in that 290, 295, 300 range. Both players have got experience in Jim Schwartz's scheme, which is similar to D'Amico Ryan's. He's got a little bit of exposure to there, but those 2 are a little bit slimmer, and Fatakusi and Settle are big dudes. Marcus Harris is going to be more in the Autry Edwards type build. He's a little bit smaller dude. He's 285-ish, 290. So I'm curious, but that's one name that I think has a chance to make this roster. He's a 7th round draft pick. And that's a player that I just want to watch and see. And again, it's same with offensive line. It's tough to see how the defensive line players do when there's no pads on. In the trenches, that's, when the pads are off, skill players is where we get to see a lot of the big show. When the pads are off, defensive line in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. It's a little bit tricky. You can watch some handwork, see how things go like that. But until you see the pads go on, that's going to be a player. But so he was a very good pass rusher in college. Run defense, might be a little bit something to come back to. But this whole group is going to be interesting. Khalil Davis, I disagree wholeheartedly that they have him 4th on the depth chart. Khalil Davis should be way over here in front of Fatakusi. Khalil Davis is my dude. I love him. I love watching him. Came from CFL. Had a fantastic season in 2023. If he's not on this 53, I'm going to be upset. So to me, it's Autry, Fatakusi, Davis as your DT 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 is going to come down to Settle, Edwards, Harris, and Kurt Heinisch. That's how that's going to shake out, in my opinion. But I'm really interested to see Marcus Harris. The second player that is dark horse that has a lot of my attention is also on defense. Is here Max Tooley. Linebacker group is. This is one of the positions that doesn't have a whole lot of depth, right? The team brought over Al-Shair Aziz from Tennessee. They tried to sign him last offseason, as we talked about last few shows ago. It's been a while since we've been live, but so Christian Harrison and Al-Shair will be your linebacker 1, 2, especially when they drop into the sub packages. They'll be the 2 linebackers on the field. Who picks up the Sam? We'll see. Could be between Toa. But I think Max Tooley has a big shot because Neville Hewitt, he's making this roster. Okay, don't even come at me with that. He's making the roster. The dude is a special teams demon. He is fantastic on special teams, and if he's on the field defensive wise, then you're hurting injuries. I mean, the dude's good in run defense coverage, not so much, but special teams, the guy is special. He is one of the best special team guys in the league, hands down. So Harris, Al-Shair, and Toa and Neville are making this roster. From there, Jake Hanson's shown some flashes, but I really think Max Tooley has a real shot to make this roster and be a contributor, be on the field, 15, 20% of the snaps. If there's an injury in front of him, maybe he can slide over into that Sam role. We'll have to see. I want to see where he lines up on defense, if he's lining up behind Harris on the weak side or if he's playing more of the Sam side. I honestly just don't know where he's going to line up. So that's one player that has my interest level. So the 2 players, like we talked about, the 2 dark horse players that have my interest is Marcus Harris, defensive tackle, and Max Tooley, the linebacker. Okay. So the next spot is surprise roster cuts, and this is a pretty short list. This team's pretty well. I would say probably the first 42 to 45 roster spots are probably set. That's a pretty big number. A lot of times I would think, the last 2 or 3 years, I would say going into training camp, that number would probably be more like 35 to 40. So I think that, there's a ton of depth across this roster. And we looked at that with the R-Lads depth chart just a minute ago, but there's a lot of depth across this roster. So surprise cuts, right off the tops, Robert Woods. It all depends on how the wide receiver group shakes out. It all depends on the health of the wide receiver group. If everybody stays healthy, Mechie, Dell, Collins, Diggs, Skowronek, all those 5 guys stay healthy, then there's a very good chance for Robert Woods is not on this roster come week 1 of the season. It's nothing against the dude. He's been a consummate professional, veteran for veteran leadership for the room. If one of those guys go down, then Robert Woods makes this roster. But if all those guys stay healthy, which is a big if, as we've seen with Collins and Dell so far, then Woods might be on this roster week 1. He may not be out here the whole season, but, have to wait and see. The second player that would be... Now we're digging into very, very back end of the roster. I really don't see a whole lot of surprise cuts beyond that. Maybe in the C.J. Henderson CB2 role, but my second player is Kurt Heinisch. And the reason why he's on this list is because he's been here for 2 years. He's played significant snaps. Um, he's played significant snaps out there on the defensive line. He's been a solid player. He's had some productive days. He's had some rough days on the line, but um, he's a good dude, good in the locker room, good teammate. Um, so he's just got a tough battle. Like we talked about before, he's got 4 or 5 guys in front of him, and then another drafted guy, Marcus Harris, is going to challenge him. So Heinisch might be on the outside looking in. Come week 1, it'd be fantastic to be able to get him back on the practice squad for sure. But he might find himself a spot on another team. The third player that I am interested in that could be a surprise roster cut would be at the tight end spot, Tegan Cotoriano. He's faced multiple injury issues, but when he's been on the field, the dude can play. He's a very good blocker, or at least he's a willing blocker. I don't want Seth Payne yelling at me. He's a good blocker. He definitely will get dirty. He will get his hands dirty. He will get in there. He'll have his misses just as Dalton Schultz and Brevin Jordan will. But with Cade Stover being signed, this is going to be very difficult for Tegan to make this roster. Dalton Keene's going to be right there pushing him. The team has Andrew Beck, who's the pseudo tight end, H-back, fullback kind of guy, which he could be replaced by Skowronek. Who knows? So it'd be interesting to see how the tight end group shakes out. But Cotoriano he can make some waves when he has time, and when he has time to be on the field, he just hasn't been healthy. And I think that's one player that could be have some difficulty. So, yeah. So if you got any questions, comments, throw them up. We'll kind of go through them here. That was the main areas that I wanted to kind of get into tonight. I could go up and down this roster. We could go up and down this roster all day and just pick it apart and see, like I talked about, looking at the wide receiver group, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, or Collins, Brown, Diggs, Dell, or Locks. From there, it's Mechie, Skowronek, Woods, Hutchinson that are vying for spots. We talked about left guard, Kendrick Green. That's going to be your battle at left guard. And with Jarrett Patterson. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Nick Broker's still hanging around. Tight end, like we talked about, Cotoriano here at TE4. Will they go with 3 tight ends again? We'll have to wait and see. Dalton Keene, another practice squad guy. This year, that's a good thing to cover. So this year, very likely we're just going to see 2 quarterbacks on the active 53-man roster, which is going to open up another spot for somebody else. Because last year they carried 3 on the 53. But this year, there's a new rule where teams can elevate a player from practice squad as an emergency quarterback. So I'm not saying who's going to be QB2, QB3. Let's just say QB3 is Case Keenum this year, right? So you sign him to practice squad. The way this works, you sign him to practice squad. And then each week he gets elevated. And it doesn't count towards the maximum number of elevations, which I believe is 3. So Keenum can be elevated every single week, and he would get full roster pay for the season. Not what he's scheduled to make right now, but he'll get the full vet minimum salary each week. And so that opens up a roster for another player. We talked about running back a little bit with Joe Mixon. Dameon Pierce, his path to this roster is going to be through special teams. Curious to watch Jawar Jordan. Big dude. My gosh, he's a big dude. Him and British Books both big dudes, but Jordan has a lot of experience out of Louisville with this zone scheme. And then we'll have to. I don't know why Troy Harrison's fullback one. It should be Andrew Beck. I didn't build this. This is our lads, but might need to just pull up my depth chart. But Andrew Beck, and there was some comments in here about, Sam talked about it. Sorry, you can't read this very well. Played some fullback for the Rams. But I mean, Andrew Beck is going to have some competition here. He's going to have some competition from Skowronek. And it's going to be see how Sloak wants to build out this offense. And then on the defensive side, the defensive end group just has a ton of depth now. Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter are going to be your main two guys. The team brought back Jerry Hughes and re-signed Derek Barnett, which I was excited about. I was excited to see Derek Barnett back. That dude's got some game. Okay, just watch. And then they have Horton on here. I'm not sure. He might be a NFI guy this year. But your 4 defensive ends are locked. Locked all day. We talked about middle with the linebacker group. We talked about that. We talked about the defensive group. Safety group we hadn't really chatted a whole lot about tonight. So a lot of issues here. Could be, would be. We'll see. Jalen Pitre, he's got to figure it out. Was a rock star rookie year, and then last year, D'Amico Ryans asked a lot of his safeties. And granted, he had a different safety next to him almost every week, it seemed like. But he's got to figure it out. So Jalen Pitre and Jimmy Ward, safety 1 and 2, interchangeable. Do a lot of disguises, shifting from cover 1 to cover 3, cover 2, post snap. But beyond that, they are putting a lot of faith in Eric Murray. The team really likes him, by all accounts. The team really likes Eric Murray, but he just can't stay healthy. He's got that Bill O'Brien stench on him. I'm sorry, Eric. I don't mean anything personal by it. And then Caleb Bullock, the rookie. I do like MJ Stewart and Lonnie Johnson. Lonnie Johnson, say what you want to say about him. He's good on special teams. And MJ Stewart is fantastic on special teams. So that safety group is going to be interesting to watch out. So I would say on the defensive side, linebacker and safety probably has the most depth issues to deal with. So let's see. Let's go to some of the questions over here in the chat. I'm still pissed about the beginning. Travis says, have I been missing these streams or just stopped? I stopped doing them. Life got in the way. No excuses. It's just the way it is. Life got in the way. I get busy. Work was busy. If you don't know, I have a special needs son, and that requires a lot of my time. And our daughter does a lot of extracurricular activities. So, as I've always told my wife and told my family that family work comes first, this comes beyond that. So that would be the main reason why I haven't done as many streams. So I just try to fit them in when I can. I love to do them. I love the interaction. I truly do. I love interacting with folks. I love talking with folks as long as you're cordial and not an a-hole, then I will have all the conversations with you as I possibly can. Beige, good to see you, buddy. Haven't chatted with you in a while. Hope everything's going down good in New Zealand. Millen, good to see you. Oh, we talked about that. We talked about Stephon Gilmore. So Ben said Skronik played some fullback. Yeah, he's going to be competing with Beck. He's going to be competing in the wide receiver spot. He's going to be competing at tight end. He's just going to kind of be the catch-all kind of guy. And it'd be interesting to see if they go 6 wide receivers with the group and you eliminate Beck, then does Skronik slide in as that pseudo fullback? I mean, what to watch? Because, I mean, Beck, run blocking he had some misses. And I'm reading about it. I'm trying to learn. So if you can see this, get this book. It's by Bobby Peters, who has a newsletter called Alert the Post. And this book is, I'm on like page 53 out of like 250. And I'm on like basics 101 stuff with reading through his book. If you have access to film through Game Pass or NFL Plus, as it's called now. I'm sorry I kind of go off on a tangent here, but I'm trying to learn. I set a goal for myself this year to learn about the run game because my analysis last year was less than stellar, I will admit. Had plenty of times where I was just completely wrong, and I want to be better. So this year, I want to learn about run schemes. The receiving schemes, I've got a decent grasp on, and there's a ton of people on Twitter, X, I keep calling it Twitter, that I can follow and get a better understanding. But this book by Bobby Peters, who's a fantastic individual, super nice dude. He writes these books. They're self-published. He's done them for multiple years. He's especially big on the Shanahan tree. He's done them on the San Francisco team. He's done them on Miami, where Mike McDaniels, the Los Angeles Rams, things like that. So, and I'm trying to learn, trying to get better. But so back to the question about Skronik and Beck. It depends on how things shake out in practice. Who becomes the best blocker, who becomes the best teammate, who becomes the best catch-all. That we'll just have to see, and so I'll have to see how it plays out. TQ is better than... Man, you want to talk about falling into a trap? So, I'm going to story mode. So, I don't play fantasy football anymore for a reason. It was just consuming my life. So, I had a dynasty team, or one of those long team, where you only draft rookies every year and blah, blah, blah. And seeing all those reports from OTAs. Holly Waring looks like a madman. He's built out of looks like Captain America. He's built out of a machine. He just looks fantastic. I drafted him in all my dynasty leagues and all this stuff, and it was the biggest waste. So yes, Cotoriano is better than Kahale Waring. And that was impressive, the run to Kahale Waring. He signed with like 4 or 5 teams in the course of like 5 weeks. Yeah, so will the cap and trade show be coming back this season? Sam, I don't know. I want it to. I will do the best I can. At a minimum, I'll have the newsletter rocking and rolling. But as for consistency, I don't know. It just kind of depends on life in general, how work is going, how the kids are doing, how my wife's travel schedule is going, things like that. So I will do as lives when I can, but at a minimum, the newsletters will be prevalent at least once a week, if not more. Travis, LB depth is one of my biggest concerns. I don't know if we even have the dudes to play base defense, much less someone gets injured. That's a valid concern. Because, I mean, if you have Toa playing your strong side, we'll just have to wait and see. But, that might be an area that the team looks at during 53-man roster cutdowns. Maybe they could pick up somebody. But, yeah, I'm right there with you. We talked about that a little bit during the show tonight. Patrick Storm, hey, bud. I'm good. And Larry, my bud, my GM buddy, howdy. Same to you. Tony just came up. So, NCAA College Football 2025. I'm glad that came up. I feel like I'm the only person who didn't buy that game. I play Xbox when I can in what little time I do have. What I do have, I'm even making sentences. I like playing Call of Duty. I replay all the Call of Duty games. I love the story mode. I'm not big into like the online battle royale and online games. I like playing the story mode. So I love in Madden, I think it was 2023, I played the story mode where you start in high school and you come your way up, but I started seeing all this stuff, College Football 2025. The amount of effort and time it takes into that is just wild. I mean, absolutely wild. I'm like, I can't commit that much time. I mean, I want to work. I have my day job. I want to do my newsletter, right? I want to produce that content for y'all as much as possible. Family, kids, like my daughter's in karate. I mean, it's just constant. I don't have time to. I'm not saying that people that do it are bad people. For me, I just don't have time. But like you see, like the story, whatever it is, the Dynasty mode, I think it's called. I mean, folks are just diving into it. I appreciate it. I love it to death. I love seeing it on X and the folks that are doing all the playbooks, and you see all the YouTube videos and tutorials and things. I'm like, oh, I guess if I was like 22, 23, 24 years old, didn't have a family, and I was a bachelor and I had time to do that, I would probably have been all over it. But no. But yeah. and the problem is I'm over here learning about zone schemes 101. Certainly not getting into, like this week. Let me see what I have my bookmark set at. Inside zone week slice is what I'm working on this week. And slice is split zone, which is interesting because that's where the tight end crosses the whole offensive line. So that's what I'm working on for this week, maybe. Do you think Caserio has a plan to trade Robert Woods before the final 53? I think he would have trade value at a minimum level, probably like a day 3, like 6th or 7th round pick, if you can find somebody that has a need for it. So, maybe you find a team that has very low depth at wide receiver and they encountered 1 or 2 injuries, then maybe you could trade for him. But I don't see a whole lot of value even getting back like a 2026, 2027, 6th or 7th rounder. I think Robert Woods has done enough for this team for you to give him the Mark Ingram treatment, where if you're going to trade him, then you talk to him and say, hey, we're looking at going to this team. We're looking at sending you to this team. Are you okay with that? And if he's not, that's fine. You just release him and let him go. Choose his team and go. But I I don't think Woods is the case where you just flat out just trade him just to trade him. Who do you think might be this year's training camp Cinderella story, so to speak? Every year it feels like always have a guy stand out, but it doesn't make the team or doesn't carry the array. I kind of touched on that, 11. I kind of touched on that in the beginning with, or in the middle of the way when I was talking about players that I'm watching. And that's going to be Marcus Harris, the defensive tackle they drafted, and Max Tooley, linebacker that was an undrafted player. That's the two under the radar Cinderella story type players that I think has a chance to make this roster week one, whether it's through special teams or actually seeing more than 5% snaps. But that's the two players that I think the offensive side is a bit crowded. I think, like we talked about with Catordiano at tight end, running back Jordan, Pierce, Mixon, Ogunbowale. We talked about wide receiver group. We talked about offensive line. So to me, the Cinderella story type players is going to come from the defensive side of the ball. And then it's going to be Marcus Harris and Max Tooley. They'd be the two players that I would keep an eye on. Because, especially with Marcus Harris, like we talked about, the defensive tackle group, it's a lot of unknowns. Fadakusi, Tim Settle, Khalil Davis, Mario Edwards. What happens beyond those four guys, we just don't know. And Denico Autry, if you want to slot him into that defensive tackle group. So you got 5 players. 2 or 3 of them are big dudes, plus 300, and the other 2 guys are under 300. So, and Marcus Harris is a smaller guy; he's like 285. So, we'll have to wait and see. But that would be Max Tooley and Marcus Harris. Is Dylan Horton healthy enough to be? I would be shocked, Tony, if he is, and I don't have any inside information specific to Horton. He was watching OTAs, if I remember correctly. So I feel like he is a NFI non-football illness player for this year. I don't feel like he's going to be ready to go. Now, I may be completely wrong. I don't have any inside info on that one. I just have to wait and see if he shows up on Thursday morning in pads or if he's just watching. But I would think it's going to be a semi-redshirt year for Horton, and we'll wait and see for next year, for 2025, if he's available and ready to go. So I think that's about all the questions. We're right in an hour. Had a lot of good viewers, man. I'm excited. 475 viewers, so that's exciting. I apologize for the audio issues at the beginning. That was my fault. I just like to adjust things and play with things and try to improve things, and I missed my audio setting. Just pisses me off. But what can you do? So, give it about another 30 seconds if there's any last-minute questions. But training camp does start Thursday. Players start reporting tomorrow. I will attend as many camps as I possibly can. I won't be able to attend all of them. I'm thinking this week, can't go Thursday because we're doing investigation training at work that I'm running. I love teaching investigating training. Friday, I'm hoping I can make, and then Saturday I can't because of family stuff. But I will do what I can to produce what I can for content. But if there's anybody you need to follow beyond me, which I'm always 1A, Cody Stutes at houfootball.com. Make sure you follow him. And Landry Locker at the Locker Room. Them two will be probably at every single practice, if I had to guess. So I think with that, we will call it a night. That was fun. I enjoy these live streams. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the interactions. I always enjoy doing these, so when I can, I will do them. And I hope you found everything here helpful. And training camp's coming. The season is here. So I hope everything's good. I hope everybody came out well from the hurricane. I know that was a kind of a sticking point for a lot of people for the last 6 or 7 days. Hopefully you have power. If you don't have power yet, I hope it comes back very soon. I'll be praying for you. But man, get you a generator, get you whatever you can, because if a Cat 1 did that, it's going to get worse. I appreciate you, 11, man. I would love to do more of these if I can. I'll do as many of these as I possibly can. I will just have to wait and kind of see how this offseason going, this training camp's going. But I got my training camp sweat rag ready to sweat. Got my water bottle. I'm hoping Omar in the group is giving us some shade this year, but it is hot. And Tony never lost power in Cypress. You're lucky, man. I was lucky too. I didn't lose power. I feel guilty that I didn't lose power. Sam, good to have you, man. I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate the support. Like I said, if you haven't subscribed to the Cap and Trade newsletter, please do so. It's free. capandtrade.football. There's a paid subscription option if you want to support. It helps me get access to more data. I'm hoping I lost my NGS access, unfortunately, for Next Gen Stats. Is what it is, but there's a new crew out there with Field Vision that I'm hoping to link up with, and I'll produce as much content, video, whatever we can do. So with that, I think that's good to close. So everybody have a wonderful night, have a wonderful week. Make sure you're following myself at Texans Cap and the other folks that I mentioned, and we'll give you everything we possibly can on the Texans, because it's going to be an exciting year. Training camp is here. We're back. Houston is in the national media discussion. CJ Stroud is everywhere, and I am just stoked, man. We are past the David Culley, Lovie Smith nonsense. This team is ready to rock and roll. I still that for Mark Vandermeer. This team is ready to win, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to bring everything to you. So join in, subscribe, hit the like buttons, do everything. And we will see you on the other side. Have a good night.